What's up, guys? Welcome to the Crypto Savvy channel. I'm Craig. We are going to be going over the charts. We're going to take a look at the Dow Jones, and then we're going to take a look at Bitcoin. We'll also take a look at the DXY real quick. And towards the end, I will take a quick look at Tesla and XRP. Very old charts we've been watching for a long time where I expect them to go. Obviously, I could be wrong. None of this is financial advice, but we're going to talk a little bit about last week's targets and the areas I told you to watch for a bounce. We'll take a look at that chart, see what's going on now. Could we be going to a new all-time high, or is it over and we've topped out? We're going to take a look at that, and let's get into it. Before we begin, make sure you go down, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Even if you have, make sure you're still subscribed. I've had a few people get a hold of me and saying they resubscribed a few times and got unsubscribed somehow, so double check that. Also, make sure your notification bells are ticked on so you get notified when I post new videos. All right, let's take a look at the Dow Jones. We've been looking at this as a possible 5-wave count to the downside. We got rejected at the 0.236, which we talked about last week at 38,143. Now, depending on if we break this low, then I think we're headed down to that 37-ish range. Otherwise, we come one more pop up for a wave 4 to this 38,473. If it breaks above that, we could go as high as the 39,000 before a retrace. That'd be a pretty high. That'd be a pretty high wave 4, though, meaning this wave 2 was almost 100% retracement. So this should be a, usually when you have a deep retracement for wave 2, you have a shallow one for wave 4. So if this count is correct, if we haven't already topped for wave 4, which is probably unlikely, I'd look for that 382 at 38,473-ish. And then if we look at the big picture, you guys know what I'm looking at for the Dow. So I do think there's a great possibility that it's already topped out. It's making pretty much the same pattern it made in the Great Depression. And with all the things going on today, I know a lot of people are like, times are different now. I understand that. But the markets always play out in patterns and cycles because human emotion does not change. And that's what markets are based on, right? They'll put out certain news or certain hype things to get the markets to pump. Then they'll put out some bad news when really what they're doing is dumping on you and then giving you a reason, or pumping the market and giving you a reason. In my opinion, it's all just BS, right? It's a giant casino, and there's a lot of money to be made. Whether it go up or down depends on if you're on the right side or not. Now let's take a look at, first off, if you guys are interested in trading, Prime XBT is a sponsor of the channel. Definitely check them out. I have a link down below that will bring you to this page, and you could choose up to a $7,000 bonus or 25% discount on your commissions or on your trading fees, right? So definitely check that out. Let's take a look at the wave count we're looking at for Elliott Wave, right? So what we talked about, let me get some of these lines back in here from the last video, right? Do I have my, we'll have to throw them back on here. Okay. So what we were looking at in the last video was looking at this as a wave 1, then we had an ABC2, looking for 5 waves down. And if we look at the smaller structure here, what I'm looking for is, let me get the 5-wave count here. Here we go. So looking at a smaller wave count, right? So within wave 3, you should have 5 waves. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. As long as it doesn't break this wave 1 right here, this could still be 4 and get us down to our 51.7 target, and then another big bounce back up to possibly as high as 56.8 to 56.9 for wave 4, and then wave 5 being 42.8 where we would most likely have a bounce. Does that mean that it goes to a new all-time high? Does not mean that. We will take a look at the bullish case scenario after this in the Wyckoff method, right? I've talked about it a little bit last week. I'm going to talk about it a little more today, what to watch for if we do get a rally up. And we could have started here. If you guys remember, I showed you the 1-to-1 extension possibility. We talked about this last week. You take your Fibonacci extension, you put it up at this high here, down to this low, right? And then back up to this high here, right here, this wave 2, or wave B. If I move this stuff out of the way, let me get that out of there. We talked about this being a possible ABC, right? Down to that 1-to-1 extension. That's exactly where we hit the 1-to-1 extension. I told you to expect a bounce there. Does that mean we're going to new all-time high? It does not necessarily mean that. But if this was a finished wave, right, and we don't break this 59.7, then we look at it totally different. Could it be the wick off, right? We got our bounce at the... So we got our automatic reaction here, right? And then to our sign of weakness, we got a big bounce there. That's what we were talking about last week. If that's the case and we do continue up, we could go up to our up thrust right here around that 76,000 range. That's not exact. Could be 74, could be 77, but in that range. And then I expect a rejection, come back down, and maybe one more high. If it's schematic 1, right? Let me pull that up and show you what that looks like. Right here, right? So if that was the case, it would look something like this, right? We talked about this a few years back at the 64th, when we hit 64,000. I actually gave you that target about 2 months ahead of time before it came down to that 29,000. So if we can stay above this sign of weakness level right here where we had our drop, I would be looking for another big move up to that, like I said, 76,000-ish range, come back down, and then one more high. That would be towards maybe the end of the year, which is usually when Bitcoin tops, right? But there's no guarantee that that's what's happening. If we look at schematic 2, these are both the bullish case. The bearish case that I showed you on the 5-wave countdown is that Bitcoin has already topped. But if this is going to continue up for one more high, this is also what we could see. These are what you need to be looking at on these schematics, right? So same thing. We got our bounce at the sell right here, which is the sign of weakness. If this is the case and we don't break this low, either way, this ends up the same, about 76,000. But in this case, we don't get another high like we did in the last schematic I told you, and then just, down from there. But either way, I still believe there's a good possibility that this thing is not going to 100,000 like a lot of people are saying. Obviously it could, right? But I wouldn't count on it. I would not depend on it. We need to see how this plays out before even thinking of 100,000, right? That's happened many years in the past where you expected 100,000. It did not come. I just want to put the warning out there, especially to you people that are new to Bitcoin and believe just because of ETF, because of the halving, everything's going to go up forever. That's a great way for the big players to keep you buying in while they dump, right? And keep the price up so they can keep dumping at higher prices. But if you know anything about Wyckoff, this is all about how they accumulate low, they get it high, they put out a bunch of great news, make people keep buying while they dump into you. And I do believe we are most likely seeing that now, in my opinion. Now let's take a look at the Tesla chart that we've talked about. As you guys know, my target has been 40 to 50 bucks. I'm still looking for the $40 to $50 target. I called that way back here in 2022, right? And then we broke. Once we broke this trend line, I told you where these blue areas are. Watch for bounces. We didn't get our bounce at 151, but we got it at 106. So now we're below 151. If we stay below that, right, we may bounce around this area for a while. Obviously, you can see there's some confluence with, high volume areas. But once this really breaks, look for that 106 again. If we break that, then I see us going towards our 40 to 50 bucks that we've been talking about for the last 2 years. XRP, you guys know my opinion on this, guys. This thing was just it's just a hype coin, and the hype is running out. This thing topped out back in 2008. Well, actually 2018. Yep. January 2018 it topped, and we've never been able to reach those levels again, and I don't think it ever will, in my opinion. Of course, unless you break this trend line up here, which is probably approximately 72 cents, somewhere in that range, then you could possibly be looking for this thing to break out like people have been talking about for years. But honestly, this thing just looks like a dying penny stock. It's weak, man. Every pump is lower and lower and lower. Unless you break out of this top trend line here that we've talked about for a very long time, which, like I said, at this time would be about 72 cents. The longer it takes, the lower it goes for a breakout, right? If that breaks out, possibly, maybe it will be bullish. Maybe it will go to new all-time highs. I don't see it. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, just look at the chart, guys. It's looking pretty weak. So anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Give me that thumbs up if you would, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to tick that notification bell. It does notify you when I post new videos. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys for stopping by. See you in the next video.